from New Delhi, you're watching the India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Haniyeh's assassination raises fears about wider escalation. UNSC nations express alarm. Indian nationals advised to avoid all non-essential travel to Lebanon. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says ready to present all vote tallies amidst protests, asked top court to ensure all parties do. US asked Caracas to come clean. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh will meet in New Delhi on Thursday, boosting bilateral economic and defense cooperation on agenda. And in sports, Indian boxer Nishant Dev through to the quarter-finals at Paris Olympics, one win away from securing a medal. And on to the details now. Leaders are calling for restraint in the wake of the assassination of senior Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and the killing of a top Hezbollah commander. There's fear these latest events may tip the Middle East into a wider regional war that could drag in the United States. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei will lead funeral prayers for Haniyeh on Thursday in Tehran. Sarah Coates has more from Tel Aviv. Take a look.
A very dangerous time in the Middle East amid fear that these two assassinations of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas's Politburo, and also of the second in charge of Hezbollah, could potentially tip the region into a wider war. Now, we've heard from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the back of a very long Security Cabinet meeting right here in Tel Aviv, where he's come out to address the Israeli public. He said that Israel will exert a cost from anybody who attacks it from any arena, saying that Israel is ready for every scenario, warning that there are challenging days ahead.
Citizens of Israel, challenging days lie ahead. Since this strike in Beirut, there are threats sounding from all directions. We are prepared for any scenario, and we will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a very heavy price for any aggression against us from any area.
Now, we do need to remember as well what we've been hearing from the Iranians. The representative to the United Nations, he came out saying the response will in fact be a tougher special operation aimed at instilling deep regret in the perpetrator. While Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he said that Israel has brought the severest punishment on itself. Now, really, diplomatic efforts right across the region are intensifying. The UN chief, Antonio Guterres, he says that this is a dangerous escalation, while the United Nations is calling for maximum restraint.
The Secretary General believes that the attacks we have seen in South Beirut and in Tehran represent a dangerous escalation at a moment in which all efforts should instead be leading to a ceasefire in Gaza, the release of all Israeli hostages, a massive increase in humanitarian aid for Palestinians in Gaza, and a return to calm and across the blue line. Rather than that, what we are seeing are efforts to undermine these goals. The Secretary General has consistently called for maximum restraint by all.
And there is, of course, a lot of fear that these two assassinations could really derail these ceasefire negotiations, hostage negotiations that have been ongoing now for months, really yielding no fruit, with a lot of fear that potentially, if indeed these negotiations are derailed, that the war in Gaza could go on for a very long time. But there is a lot of fear, of course, here on the ground in Israel among the family members of these 111 Israeli captives, that if there isn't a deal soon, that they may never see their loved ones. So it really is a region on edge this evening. And what we've been hearing from the IDF, the Israeli military's Home Front Command, is that right now there is no change in directive to the Israeli public, but it says it will update people if this does indeed change. Sarah Coates reporting from Tel Aviv for DD India.
And in view of the recent escalation in the region, Indian nationals are advised to avoid all non-essential travel to Lebanon. The Indian embassy in Beirut, in an advisory, said Indians are advised to exercise caution, restrict their movements and remain in contact with the Embassy of India in Beirut through their email ID, that is cons.beirut@mea.gov.in, or the emergency phone number, that is +961 76 128. And amidst international pressure to ensure transparency, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has promised to release all the vote tallies from a disputed weekend election. In remarks broadcast on state television on Wednesday, Maduro pledged that his Socialist Party is ready to release all of its vote tallies. He also asked the top court to force opposition parties to do the same.
Great Patriotic Poll and United Socialist Party of Venezuela are ready to present 100% of the electoral tallies in our hands, and I hope the electoral chamber asks the same from every other candidate and party.
Meanwhile, shops and public transport across Venezuela remained shut down on Wednesday. In the capital, Caracas, some stores were open, though lines were long, and there was increased military presence around the presidential palace. Well, the Organization of American States held an extraordinary meeting to discuss the election on Wednesday, where U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs, Brian Nichols, urged Maduro and foreign governments to acknowledge Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner of Sunday's election. Nichols said that the reason Venezuela's electoral authority had not yet provided detailed results of the vote was either because it did not want to show Gonzalez's victory or because it needed time to falsify the results. The CNE has declared Maduro the winner of the election, a result that has been derided as implausible by the opposition, independent pollsters, and many foreign governments. Well, another day of staggering headlines in the U.S. election news cycle, with former President Donald Trump falsely claiming his rival Kamala Harris, quote, turned black. Harris is the first African-American and first Indian-American to serve as vice president. The White House has denounced his comments as repulsive and insulting. Benji Hayo reports for more.
Yeah, remarkable, but perhaps unsurprising from a man who has a history of making disparaging remarks towards ethnic minorities and women. Someone who's played host to white supremacists, someone who's spread conspiracies about his predecessor Barack Obama's nationality, who's demanded certain lawmakers go back to countries they came from. What Donald Trump said on stage on Wednesday, whilst pressed by black journalists at a conference, was met with audible gasps as well as, frankly, extensive familiarity. He stated that he didn't know Kamala Harris was black until a number of years ago, and that according to him, she happened to turn black, questioning whether she is black or Indian. In truth, she's both. She's biracial, her mother Indian, her father black.
I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
Her campaign said Trump's appearance at the event was, quote, an absolute disaster. Amongst a tirade of hostile attacks and jibes, Trump made several other unfounded race-based allegations, including that illegal migrants were stealing what he calls black jobs. No explanation, though, of what a black job actually is. He doubled down on pardoning convicted criminals, himself now a felon, of course. And the 78-year-old, interestingly, admitted that he would absolutely step down if he felt his health was declining. He is the oldest ever presidential nominee. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is set to name her running mate in coming days, having announced her intention to run for office after President Joe Biden revealed he's no longer seeking a second term. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Well, responding to Trump's comments, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris hit back at former president that he had put on the same old show of divisiveness and disrespect.
And we are not going back. We are not going back. We all here remember what those 4 years were like. And today, we were given yet another reminder. This afternoon, Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better.
Meanwhile, the White House has termed comments from Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump about Kamala Harris' racial identity are insulting.
As a person of color, as a black woman who is in this position that is standing before you at this podium behind this lectern, what he just said, what you just read out to me, is repulsive, it's insulting, and, you know, no one has any right to tell someone who they are, how they identify. That is no one's right. It is someone's own decisions. It is, I'll add this, only she can speak to her experience. Only she can speak to what it's like. She's the only person that can do that. And I think it's insulting for anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a former leader, a former president. It is insulting.
While Nigerians are taking to the streets on August 1st in a protest against the high cost of food, transportation and other economic challenges, as well as what they say is bad governance. There are concerns that the protest could turn violent amid calls for them to be cancelled. DD India correspondent Ajik Mangut reports that security has been deployed in the capital Abuja to forestall a potential breakdown of law and order.
Ending bad governance and economic hardship and introducing reforms that will alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians are some of the demands of the protesters. Government reforms, which include the removal of subsidies on imported petrol last year, have resulted in skyrocketing prices in the pump price of the fuel, which in turn led to an increase in the cost of transportation, food and inflation. The August 1st protest will be the first major demonstration by Nigerians since the End SARS movement in 2020, which was against police brutality. The United Nations has expressed concern that the protest could potentially lead to violence. Nigeria's government has also expressed the same concern and appealed to Nigerians to refrain from protesting, asking for more time to address current challenges. It has also been making efforts, including approving a new minimum wage to get Nigerians to shelve the protest. But organizers say they are going ahead and is expected to last for about 10 days. The Nigeria police have urged the protesters to hold their protest in confined locations to guarantee their safety and avoid hijacking of a peaceful process. But the protesters insist on street protest. Over 4,000 policemen have been deployed in the capital Abuja to ensure the protest is peaceful and to protect lives and property. Ajak Mangut in Abuja, reporting for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. 3 September 11 suspects agreed to be pled guilty to conspiracy charges in exchange for a life sentence at Guantanamo. Even as protests continue near Downing Street against Southport stabbing incident, charges framed against a 17-year-old boy from Lancashire. And we at DD India tracked down one of the survivors of human trafficking in Uganda. Stay tuned to know how she survived.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and moving on, the main accused of plotting the September 11th attacks, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and 2 of his accomplices held at Guantanamo prison are reported to have agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy charges in exchange for a life sentence. The deal for the guilty pleas by Mohammed Walid bin Atash and Mustafa al-Hawasawi rather than a death penalty trial has been approved by a senior Pentagon official. All 3 men have been in custody since 2003. Mohammed is an al-Qaeda militant accused by the U.S. of being the principal architect of the September 11 attacks on New York's World Trade Center and the Pentagon outside Washington. The U.S. Defense Department released a statement on Wednesday saying prosecutors had reached plea agreements with Mohammed bin Atash and al-Hawasawi without disclosing the terms of those deals. And now let's give you the latest in the UK stabbing case. A 17-year-old boy has been charged with murder and attempted murder after 13 people, including 11 children, were stabbed at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. Police said they charged the suspect, who is from the village of Banks, Lancashire, with 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of possession of an offensive weapon. 3 children aged 6 to 9 years were fatally stabbed, while 5 children remain in critical condition after they were attacked while taking part in a dance and yoga class on Monday morning. Police arrested protesters near Downing Street on Wednesday as Britain faced a second night of demonstrations following the deaths of 3 young girls. Thousands gathered near the Prime Minister's residence demanding stringent punishment to the culprit and safety of children. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised his country's air defenses for intercepting incoming Russian drones in one of the largest attacks in recent months. While Russia claims to target military and energy facilities, strikes on residential areas are common, and Kyiv accuses Moscow of targeting civilians. Zelensky emphasized the need for sufficient supplies to maintain air defense and called for more Western air defense systems. Despite intercepting 1 missile, Zelensky warned of the need for better defense against Russian missiles and aircraft.
It is very important to build up Ukraine's ability to defend the sky. We are doing everything possible for that. If we can reach such a substantial result in defending the sky, then it is obviously proves that we can be stronger in defending the sky from missiles and in defending it from the Russian military aviation. We need reliable air defense systems. We need sufficient range of our weapons.
And Poland is beginning a new military operation on Thursday focused on securing its eastern border amid a rise in violent incidents. 17,000 soldiers will be deployed in the operation named Safe Podlasie, alongside another operation called Eastern Dawn, which will focus on protecting Polish airspace amid heightened risk due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Megan Lim reports from Kyiv for more.
Poland has been tackling a growing number of illegal border crossings by migrants coming from Belarus, which Polish officials say have led to more violent incidents in recent months. In May, a soldier was stabbed in the chest by a migrant at the country's border, and he died from his injuries in June. According to the Polish Defense Ministry, May was a particularly difficult month with other aggressive instances that sometimes involved gunfire. During last month alone, statistics showed border guards stopped nearly 100,000 illegal border crossing attempts by migrants. Operation Safe Podlasie was announced in response to these incidents and will be led by the 18th Mechanized Division of the Polish Armed Forces. EU officials believe many of these migrants have been aided by Russia and its ally Belarus in a coordinated attempt to destabilize the European Union. This month, Poland also established a roughly 60-kilometer wide no-entry buffer zone along its border with Belarus aimed at curbing the activity of human smugglers and to protect security officials on duty. Operation Safe Podlasie will be carried out alongside Operation Eastern Dawn. Poland's Ministry of Defense said in a statement that Eastern Dawn is a direct response to Russia's aggression against Ukraine, which has raised the risk of airspace violations over Poland. The operation will focus on monitoring low-altitude objects such as drones and other unmanned aerial vehicles. Megumi Lim in Kiev reporting for DD India.
Well, Venice has introduced tough new limits on tour groups from this day forward, which is 1st of August. There will be a cap of 25 people, and tour guides also aren't allowed to use loudspeakers. Italy correspondent Giles Gibson has more on this.
Roughly 30 million people visit Venice every single year, taking a gondola ride along the city's famous canals, or indeed checking out some of its most iconic sites, such as St. Mark's Square. But now the local authorities are cracking down on large tourist groups, which they say can block small alleys or streets or bridges within the city centre. So this 25-person cap applies to the city centre itself, as well as some of the most popular islands around Venice, including Murano, where the city's famous glass blowers are based. There are some exemptions to these rules, so children under the age of 2 don't actually count towards that 25-person cap, and also students on educational trips are not covered by these new rules. This is the latest move that we've seen from the local government in Venice to try to reduce the impact of tourism on their historic city. So in the last few years, we've seen them banning very large cruise ships from actually docking inside the city itself. That was over fears that those huge ships were actually causing damage to the city's lagoon. We've also, in the last few months, seen the local authorities introducing a small charge for day trippers coming into the city, although that policy was just a trial, and they're now trying to work out if they're going to make it a permanent measure. Now, Venice is really on the extreme end of this argument, because on certain days of the year you can actually have the numbers of tourists actually exceeding the numbers of local residents inside the city. But we have seen across Europe this summer really this growing pushback against what's described as over-tourism. So in many tourist hotspots in Spain, for example, we've seen these protests breaking out, really joined by local residents. So for example, in the city of Barcelona in Spain, we've seen protesters going out on the streets with local residents saying that tourism is actually driving up the cost of living, in particular the cost of renting a house or an apartment. And they've also been saying that tourism is putting pressure on their local services, such as public transport. Giles Gibson in Rome, reporting for DD India.
And an Indonesian court sentenced the former chief of state carrier Garuda Indonesia to 5 years in prison on Wednesday for corruption linked to procuring jets from plane maker Bombardier. Prosecutors had said Emir Shah Sattar, who ran Garuda from 2005 to 2014, had procured Bombardier's CRJ and ATR-72 jets without proper procedures and board approval in 2011. A lack of transparency led to the plane's poor performance, costing the state about $610 million. In 2020, Emir Shah was also sentenced to 8 years in prison for bribery and money laundering in buying planes and engines from Airbus and Rolls-Royce. Well, globally, 33% of human trafficking victims are children, with the majority being girls. In Uganda, nearly 1,700 of victims were trafficked in 2023, with the majority being domestic workers trafficked for labor to the Middle East. Isabel Lakaria tracked down one of the survivors who's now campaigning against this vice.
Joanita Ndagire was trafficked in 2016. She was sent to Oman to work as a domestic worker with hundreds others like her by a labor office here in Kampala. Ndagire says she only sensed trouble after reaching Oman when their documents were taken away from them. They were then taken to a housemaid shop and displayed for sale, where she claims they were sold to the highest bidder.
It was really a shop where, we were put on a window. We could sit, for people to stand down and look and see whoever they want to pick. So it was like window shopping.
3 days later, she was picked to work in a home, but under tough conditions. The long hours of work drained her, and she fell sick after working for just a year. Ndagire says the family she worked for was lenient and let her go, and that she was lucky to come back to Uganda.
For a long time, I was treated. At first, they said it's cancer. Another time, they said it's the heart. Another time, it was the brain. Another time, it was a lot. I went through a lot of trauma.
Ndagire had to undergo therapy to overcome the trauma. Through Agnes Igoe's mentorship program, girls like Ndagire are being given support to build self-esteem and to help stop others from being trafficked.
If you're faced with a situation like trafficking, what do you do as a child? Or if you're a parent, how do you better take care of your children? Even simple things for children, don't enter a car of somebody you do not know.
A recent report by the Uganda police shows both adults and children are exploited for domestic work. More than 220 recruitment agencies have been licensed by the government to help carry out externalization of labor and help track all those taken out of the country. But many illegal agencies exist and are said to be responsible for the trafficking of hundreds of people to Middle East countries. The government says it's working with private organizations to crack down on illegal labor agencies. Ndagire says she returned to Uganda broken, but will continue advocating against trafficking to save many who have died in the hands of traffickers. Isabel Nakiria, in Kampala, reporting for DD India.
And Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva took an aerial survey of Pantanal wetlands on Wednesday. He also signed a law aimed at managing fire control in an informed and measured manner to avoid further spreading and the potential ignition of new forest fires. World's largest tropical wetland, Pantanal, is suffering severely from forest fires. The surge of fire has raised alarm for the Pantanal, which extends into Bolivia and Paraguay and is home to a rich array of wildlife. Also, firefighters battled large fire in a room near the Italian capital's Court of Justice in a public TV broadcasting center on Wednesday. The fire forced evacuations of several buildings and offices. As summer progresses, wildfires are becoming more frequent across the Mediterranean region, including in Spain, Greece and the Balkans. The authorities have warned of high risk of fires in Rome due to extreme temperatures which were higher than 35 degrees Celsius. And Boeing on Wednesday named aerospace industry veteran Kelly Ortberg as its CEO to turn around the plane maker beset by legal and regulatory problems after a quarter in which it lost more than $1 billion. Ortberg will start on August 8th with the monumental task of rebuilding trust with regulators, the industry and the public during a quality crisis, and as the company's finance chief warned it would continue to burn cash. Boeing has been mired in a reputational and safety crisis after a January 5th mid-air cabin panel blowout on an Alaska Airlines operated MAX 9 jet carrying 171 passengers. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Fuel shortage hits Bolivia, causing long queues at gas stations on Wednesday. The country grappled with week-long diesel scarcity due to adverse weather conditions that restricted imports. Transport unions started a national strike on Wednesday to protest fuel shortages as diesel supplies shipped from Russia failed to arrive in the South American country. Transport unions started a national strike on Wednesday to protest fuel shortages as diesel supplies shipped from Russia failed to arrive in pressure bills on President Luis Arce's government to address the strain on imports. Residents of Mexico's Sinaloa fear a spike in violence after the arrest of drug cartel chief Ismael El Mayo Zambada. Nearly 200 members of the Mexican army have been deployed to Sinaloa's capital city, Culiacan, to reinforce security. Zambada was arrested on Thursday by U.S. authorities in Mexico. Pakistan's black bears find solace in Islamabad Rescue Center. The two black bears named Dabu and Baloo were rescued in February 2021 when they were barely 2 to 3 months old. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Rescue efforts on to retrieve more bodies from the debris even as Wayanad reels under nature's fury. IMD issues a red alert for the national capital and surrounding NCR regions, forecasting heavy to very heavy rainfall over the next 24 hours, lasting until 5th of August. And we'll update you about the Parliament proceedings as discussion and demand for grants for various sector continues.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory, and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Haniyeh's assassination raises fears about wider escalation. UNSC nation expresses alarm. Indian nationals advised to avoid all non-essential travel to Lebanon. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says ready to present all vote tallies amidst protest. Asked top court to ensure all parties do. US asks Caracas to come clean. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh will meet in New Delhi on Thursday, boosting bilateral economic and defense cooperation on agenda. And in sports, Indian boxer Nishant Dev through to the quarterfinals at Paris Olympics, one win away from securing a medal. And Vietnam Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, who is on India visit, will receive a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan on Thursday. The leader will also visit Rajghat to pay tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. Later, will hold bilateral discussions with the Indian counterpart Narendra Modi. The visiting leader has emphasized the long-standing friendship between Vietnam and India, dating back to 2000 years. On Wednesday, addressing India-Vietnam Joint Forum, he called for stronger economic cooperation between Vietnam and India, setting an ambitious target of $20 billion in bilateral trade. Early on Wednesday, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and appreciated his guidance on India-Vietnam bilateral ties. And for more, we are joined by correspondent Akshay Dongre from New Delhi. Well, Akshay, good morning. India, if we talk about India, considers Vietnam as a key pillar of its Act East policy and, of course, an important partner as far as its Indo-Pacific vision is concerned. What all is lined up for today?
Well, today is a long day as far as the engagements are concerned of the Vietnamese Prime Minister, who is on a 3-day visit to India. In fact, he's not just traveling alone, he has he has brought a delegation of ministers, of business leaders, of other leaders from Vietnam to India on this visit with him. And as far as today's day is concerned, Pham Minh Chinh, the Vietnamese Prime Minister, is going to get a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, that is the presidential palace in New Delhi. He will also go to Rajghat and pay his obeisance to father of India, Mahatma Gandhi. And in fact, he will be meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well today, where both the leaders will be discussing their bilateral relations, and it will have in fact a bilateral engagement as well. Now, you have rightly mentioned that Vietnam is very, very crucial as far as India's Act East policy is concerned, or the Indo-Pacific vision is concerned, given the fact that be it the Indo-Pacific region or the South China Sea or that entire ASEAN group of nations, India and ASEAN nations in fact share a common threat as far as the freedom of trade is concerned, the freedom of navigation is concerned in that region, and that is the growing aggression and aggressive tactics by the Chinese military in the South China Sea. So both of them share same concerns, share same sort of issues that they have been facing. When it comes to India, it has been facing similar kind of transgression incidents in the Indian Ocean region. Vietnam and many of the ASEAN nations are facing the same thing as far as the South China Sea is concerned, where we have also noticed that in the past several months there have been many instances where the Chinese naval assets naval forces have in fact come into contact, and in fact there have been some sort of tussle between the Chinese Coast Guard and the navies that are operating in that region, be it the Philippines Navy or be it other countries including Vietnam as well. So that remains a key concern for both the countries, and taking the relationship further to a strategic level is going to be beneficial for both the countries, and that seems to be the reason why there is an uptaking as far as the closeness of ties between India and Vietnam are concerned. Back to you, Lipakshi.
All right. Also, Akshay, if we talk about India and Vietnam, their trade revenue has skyrocketed, and the visit will also give a chance for both nations to collaborate on international and regional issues. And you were mentioning they will boost ASEAN-India strategic ties also. What all can be expected in that area?
There are certain key technologies in terms of manufacturing, because both India and Vietnam are in fact perceived as two of the manufacturing hubs in the Asian continent. In fact, after India, it is Vietnam where a lot of manufacturing industry has been moving to, coming in from China, given the fact that Chinese manufacturing costs have been skyrocketing for the past several years, and the manufacturers have been trying to find alternatives, and these alternatives have been India, on some instances it has also been Bangladesh, and in Vietnam as well. So both of these countries have, they share a same sort of destiny as far as their ambitions to become manufacturing hubs are concerned. So in that regard, both of them can collaborate, both India and Vietnam can collaborate. Tourism is a key sector. We are seeing an uptick in Indian tourists now going to Vietnam, vice versa. Vietnamese tourists are coming to India as well. So that is one of the shared agenda that the countries may discuss today when the meeting takes place, along with other technologies, including green technologies and transition to green sources of energy.
Right. Thank you, Akshay, so much for all that update from there. And moving on, the 30th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs was held on Wednesday. Further to discussions between the two foreign ministers in their recent meetings at Astana and Vientiane, the two sides reviewed the current situation along the line of actual control with a view to finding an early resolution of the outstanding issues. Restoration of peace and tranquility and respect for the LAC are an essential basis for restoration of normalcy in bilateral relations. They agreed on the need to jointly uphold peace and tranquility on the ground in the border areas in accordance with relevant bilateral agreements, protocols and understandings reached between the two governments. The discussions at the meeting was in-depth, constructive and forward-looking. Both sides agreed to maintain the momentum through the established diplomatic and military channels. And discussion on the second stage union budget to continue in both the houses of Indian Parliament today. In the lower house, discussion and voting will take place on demand for grants under the control of the Ministry of Railways for 2024-25. Discussion and voting will also take place on demand for grants under the control of Ministry of Education for 2024-25. Discussion and voting will also take place on demand for grants under control of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for 2024-25 to be held. Moreover, uproar likely in Parliament over Delhi coaching incident also. And Debyendu Modal joins us from New Delhi for more on this. Well, Debyendu, good morning. What all is planned in the proceedings of the Parliament for today?
Well, very good morning, Lipakshi. The Parliament will continue with the discussion on the Union Budget 2024-25 presented by Union Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Yesterday, we saw she gave her reply to the budget in the upper house, and day before yesterday, she did to the Lok Sabha. This is as per the customs. What is expected today inside Parliament is, of course, Amit Shah, Union Home Minister, is going to introduce a bill to amend the Disaster Management Act. Yesterday, we saw the Aircrafts Management Act and the Aircrafts Advocacy Bill of 1934 has been done away with, and a new bill for the civil aviation sector was introduced by the Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu. Discussions on that bill will, of course, take place, and also today, Union Home Minister is going to put forth in the lower house the bill to amend the Disaster Management Act. And apart from that, discussion for the grants of various ministries will take place, and voting will also take place. Yesterday, the Railway Ministry's demand for grants did begin, but today it will also move on to ministries like the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Family and Health. So, of course, these are some of the discussions that are perhaps lined up in the Parliament today. But as you were rightly saying, we could see some uproar in both the houses of Parliament with regards to the unfortunate death of 3 students in a coaching institute in Old Rajendra Nagar in Delhi. But also, Lipakshi, yesterday's rain have again caused fury and havoc in the national capital, giving a sense of how the infrastructure of the capital is crumbling. So this could also, perhaps come up in the Parliament during discussion. Today is what we pick up from the opposition sources. So, of course, some sorts of, uproar or adjournment motion could perhaps be seen when the Parliament reconvenes at 11 a.m. Lipakshi.
All right. Thank you so much, Debyendu, for all that update on the proceedings today. And moving on, the death toll in the landslides that hit the Indian state of Kerala's Wayanad district has risen to over 170 as more bodies retrieved from the debris. Days of ceaseless rain triggered a series of landslides on Tuesday, injuring scores of people, and several others are still missing. With the Kerala government declaring a 2-day state mourning, State Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan urged people to come together to rebuild destroyed livelihoods, similar to what they did after the 2018 floods in the state. Rescue efforts are also underway as the Army has deployed 200 soldiers from the Defence Security Corps and a medical team to assist with the rescue operations. Additionally, 2 helicopters from the Air Force Station in Sulur have been dispatched to aid in the efforts. Over 40 camps have been set up in Wayanad, with more than 3,000 people being rehabilitated.
Bridge is nearing completion at 10 o'clock today, and once the bridge comes up, it will be a major change. We will be able to induct all equipment into the site, and once the equipment goes into the site, then we will be able to dig for people, heavy equipment. That is what we are planning to do. This bridge, which has been constructed by our efforts day and night, has now come up. And this is going to change the dynamics of the rescue operations, and that's what we are hoping. As of now, from the Indian Army, 500 plus men are working in around 5 to 6 columns. We are working here.
Also, IMD has issued a yellow alert for isolated heavy rainfall for 9 districts on Thursday. Rain and thunderstorm expected to continue till 2nd of August. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has conveyed his condolences to Indian President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi over casualties in landslides in Kerala. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Please accept my sincerest condolences over the tragic incidences of landslides in the state of Kerala. Convey my sympathy and support to the families of the deceased." Putin also wished the swiftest recovery to those injured in the natural disaster. And Ajay Joy joins us from Wayanad now. Good morning, Ajay. What's the latest? Yellow alert has also been issued. That's what we know as of now.
Yes, Libakshi, rain is still here, but it won't be that much an impediment for the relief and rescue operations. The good news is that work on the Bailey Bridge construction has been going on throughout the night, despite the heavy rainfall. So we are hopeful that it will be fully for use by afternoon. That means by 11, 12 o'clock, heavy machinery will be able to move out to the other side. Good news is that 5 JCBs, they have already been shifted to the west side of this area where the worst landslide had happened, and we were unable to reach that area. So the good news here is that heavy machineries have already started moving to the other side, and rescue operations will be picking up the pace very soon. And each of these squads will be attached with a dog squad as well. So for easy and better search operations. And relief columns, they are already there today by 6 a.m. onwards. So that means by the time we are speaking right now, rescue operations are still going on. And many bodies are still being retrieved from Chaliyar River in the neighboring district as well. So the death toll is increasing. That's the sad part of it. But efforts are being on all full steam right now to get to the last person in this area.
All right, Ajay, thank you so much for that update right now. And moving on, the Indian Meteorological Department has alerted about active monsoon conditions that are likely to spread across northwest India in the upcoming days. A widespread downpour along with isolated rainfall is expected to occur in east and central India. The Met Department has also issued warning of potential flood-like conditions in coastal Karnataka, Goa and Maharashtra over the next few days. Isolated heavy precipitation is likely to occur in Haryana, West Uttar Pradesh, Chandigarh and West Rajasthan. Also, after being battered with torrential rains last week in Gujarat, this week the state is witnessing relatively less downpour. During this time, only light to moderate rain is likely to occur across all districts of the state. As per the Weather Department, the cyclonic circulation that was active and causing heavy rain has moved forward. Therefore, the possibility of heavy rains is low for the next 2 days. Also, the Indian Meteorological Department has issued a red alert for the national capital and surrounding NCR regions, forecasting heavy to very heavy rainfall over the next 24 hours lasting until 5th of August. Delhi experienced significant water logging on Wednesday evening following an intense bout of rainfall resulting in major traffic disruptions across various regions. Flights diverted, all schools still remain closed on Thursday due to heavy rainfall. And we're now joined by Parth Pandya from Ahmedabad for more. Well, Parth, what's the situation there in Gujarat as IMD predicted less rain for the coming days?
Yes, Lepakshi, as we talked earlier also, IMD has predicted a high alert situation till today. But in the last 24 hours, if we talk specifically about rain, it was light to moderate rain in all over the parts of Gujarat. Especially the southern part of the Gujarat, that is Surat, Navsari, Valsad and the Saurashtra region, recorded almost 2 to 2.5 inch of rain yesterday. And another one important thing from the IMD that we heard yesterday, that one more system is going to be active from 2nd of August in all over Gujarat. So let us see what happens in the upcoming from 2nd to 7th of August, because IMD has issued a warning like situation again. If we talk about facts and figures, Northern Gujarat, Central Gujarat has received almost 45 to 55% of the average rainfall from 1st of June till 30th of July. And the southern Gujarat region as well as the Saurashtra has recorded almost 75% of rain, accumulative rain average, whereas Kutch has received almost 85%. That is significant. Upcoming days will see what happens, but right now the Gujarat situation as far as rain is concerned is receiving a good amount of rain. Yesterday it was light and moderate. Today it is a bit sunny, a bit hazy, a bit drizzling down in some parts of the Gujarat. But see, let's see what happens in the upcoming days, because IMD has issued one more system going to be active in upcoming days.
All right, thank you so much, Parth, for all that update from there. And moving on, Indian hill state of Uttarakhand is also witnessing heavy rain since last night, affecting normal life at many places. Cloudburst incident was reported at Jakhaniali in the Ghansali area of Tehri Garhwal district. 2 people were found dead and another was injured after the trio went missing following the cloudburst. Across the rain-affected regions, rescue operations are underway. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami is in constant touch with the local administration and instructed the NDRF and SDRF teams to remain on alert mode in the affected areas. He emphasized that there should be no shortage of funds for disaster relief work. He also requested locals to travel only after taking information about the weather conditions. And another Indian hill state of Himachal Pradesh witnessed incidents of cloudburst in Mandi and Rampur districts. In Mandi, 1 body was recovered while 9 people are missing. Mandi Deputy Commissioner said the district administration and National Disaster Response Force teams are carrying out rescue and relief operation. While in Rampur district, 19 people are missing after the cloudburst incident. State Disaster Response Force, Police, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, Special Home Guard and rescue teams are on the spot. Besides, ambulance and basic facilities are also included in the rescue operations. Well, the Indian Air Force will be hosting its first multinational air exercise, Tarang Shakti, in August and September this year in 2 stages at Sulur in Tamil Nadu and Jodhpur in Rajasthan. The first phase, to be held in the south at Sulur, will see participation from the air forces of Germany, France, Spain and the United Kingdom. The second phase will occur in Jodhpur in September. The Indian Air Force will deploy Rafale Tejas light combat aircraft, Sukhoi 30 MKI Mirage 2000 and Jaguar fighters, along with helicopters such as the Prachand Light. The German, Spanish and UK air forces will join with their Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft, while Australia, the UAE and the USA will bring F-18 fighters. France's Air Force will participate with Rafale fighter aircraft.
Largest international air exercise ever conducted in India, with invitations extended to 51 countries. This exercise aims to strengthen strategic relations with our friends from international community. Complex missions are planned to enhance our mutual understanding of air operations, air power application, and also practicing multiple combat scenarios in the realistic environment. It is also an excellent opportunity for all of us to share our best practices with each other.
And now to all the updates from Paris Olympics 2024. Well, on day 6 of Paris Olympics, Team India is all set to feature in several disciplines such as boxing, sailing, archery and shooting, badminton and hockey. 3 medal events in athletics are also slated to take place. DT India correspondent Narayan Singh has sent this report from Paris. Take a look.
There were no medals on day 5 for India, but there was plenty to cheer, and day 6 promises to be one of the most significant days of the game for the Indian contingent, which could make or break medal hopes. It is without a doubt a day packed with critical clashes across boxing, badminton and shooting. Athletic action begins too with race walk. The main medal events in the shooting was Swapnil Kusale will be in action in the men's 50-meter rifle 3-position final. In boxing, Nikhat Zareen, in most probably the most significant bout of her career so far, Nikhat will take on a huge challenge of Chinese favorite boxer Yu Yu in a battle of world champion. In 50-meter rifle 3-position women's category, the qualification, Anju Mudgil and Sif Kaur Samra will be in action. In hockey, in a battle of two teams who have already qualified for the quarterfinals, Harmanpreet Singh and company will face a litmus test against Belgium to test their level against an elite team before knockout. Thursday will also determine to large extent if Indian badminton run can continue at the Olympics. Sindhu faces tough test against He, and in men's round of 16, Lakshya Sen will face HS Prannoy. Talking about athletics in men's 20-kilometer race, Paramjit Singh and Akashdeep Singh and Vikas will be in action. In women's 20-kilometer race, Priyanka Goswami will be there. And track and field action is one of the highlights of the Olympic Games. And India's athletic contingent get going with the 20-kilometer race walk entering the fray. Both are medal events here. Talking about golf, an expected hit for the Indian contingent in Tokyo, where Aditya Ashok made waves. Action begins in Paris, where Shubhankar and Gaganjit tee off in the men's event. And in archery, men's recurve team at the Praveen Jadhav and will try to test his mettle in the mixed. If you talk about Dheeraj and Tarundeep Rai, already knocked out, and Praveen is the last man standing for the men's category.
Well, in boxing, India's Nishant Dev entered the quarterfinals of the 71 kg men's competition. Now he's one win away from a medal. He overcame Jose Gabriel Rodriguez Tenorio of Ecuador at the Paris Olympics on Wednesday. They won the contest 3-2 via a split decision. They've started the bout on an aggressive note, landing straight and precise punches on his opponent to win the first round comfortably. But the Ecuadorian saved his best for the last. But at the end, the Indian did enough to defend his score and secure a place in the last 8 round. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.